Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another 80s Monday with a film which for years I was convinced I was the only one who even knew about, which is For Dudes from 1987. This one starring John Cryer, Daniel Roebuck, Flea, yes, Red Hot Chili Peppers Flea, Catherine Mary Stewart, and Lee Ving of Fear fame. Now, I had been wanting to revisit this one for years. Like years back, I wanted to revisit it, but I could only really find like a kind of crappy VHS copy of it until not too long ago when it kind of had a remastering of sorts and is now ended up on Peacock. Also, about 2 years ago at Spooky Empire, which I hit up for several celebrity reasons, as to meet, such as to meet fellow and more, wildly more established and successful YouTubers, Grim Life Collective. I also wanted to meet Daniel Roebuck because I'd seen him in a lot of things over the years, especially in a lot of horror films. Now, since he's in this, I mentioned that I'd been wanting to revisit this film for my channel, and he asked me to be gentle. It was a long time ago. To which I assured him, hey, if it doesn't sit well with me, I don't make a video about it. I only want to do videos about ones that I enjoy. So anyways, moving on, what is this film about? Well, the synopsis is as follows. 3 punk-loving New York City dudes need a change and drive a VW Beetle to California. After rednecks kill one of them in Arizona, they want justice. A cute girl helps them. That's kind of a crappy, thing about a cute girl and why there's focus on the VW Beetle. Anyways, but that's the gist of it. But yeah, they're fed up with New York, and Milo, played by Flea, he just has this idea to say, fuck it, let's move to LA, check out the scene out there. And, because of this, after our introduction kind of showing them at the show and recovering from this pit and feeling a bit just kind of done, like stuck in a rut, we get this nice road trip movie on top of all this, which includes, some weird interactions along the way, such as a weird interaction with the Elvis impersonator, who's like a jack of all trades, who actually does come back up in the story way later on. But the worst interaction, though, they get was a gang led by Missoula, played by Lee Ving, who also plays Mr. Body in Clue. So there's that little connection. So they happen to be at this gang's rendezvous camp, and they had this run-in, and rather than just kind of take their money, a chase ensues, and they end up killing Milo. Now, that's not a big spoiler, that's just what the story starts out with. So Cryer and Roebuck's characters, they escape, they are trying to get help from local law enforcement, but there's no trace of this gang or even of Milo's body, so they just want these New York City punks to get out of town. They're not even really looking into it. Well, instead, Cryer's character, Grant, wants to track down this Missoula and get revenge, which of course causes some issues between him and Roebuck's character named Biscuit. And, even though they can kind of act tough in a pit, and like kind of hardcore kind of music that they listen to, they're not really tough guys, And at its core, this is a road trip film about seeking revenge, most of which taking place in the West and involving these punk rockers, of course. We do get the addition of the character Jessie, played by Catherine Mary Stewart of Last Starfighter and Night of the Comet fame. She's a local woman who kind of runs this gas station and towing service, who initially gives them a heads up about, and kind of like a warning about how to handle some of the locals in that town. But eventually she does get kind of pulled in to help them after an altercation with Missoula down the road. But that road trip feels is like the strongest aspect, I would say, of this film, having that road trip feel. A road trip for vengeance with these punk rockers who, being fishes out of water as they are, occasionally are still able to bring some comedy into it. Not so much as to throw off the more dramatic and like thriller aspects of this, any of those vibes, but enough to kind of keep things going with these moments of humor thrown in, for which the chemistry between Roebuck and Cryer, that's where it comes into play. And that chemistry between those characters of Biscuit and Grant, that really shines bright in this one. They work so well together, both as actors who are constantly kind of taking turns propping each other up in each scene, as well as the characters who it kind of helps to keep things a bit even, rather than it being maybe a little bit too one-sided towards, let's say, like the Grant character. It's very evened out, but more on that story because it does get a little bit weird here and there, such as Grant occasionally seeing this image of a cowboy who then vanishes, usually when something emotional is happening, such as him looking out over a large canyon for the first time, being a city boy and kind of taking it all in. or stumbling through the desert after that first run-in with Missoula. But the really weird one, and some may see this as a tad problematic since there wasn't anything I can remember being established about Biscuit's character having any Native American ancestry, is him getting kind of like a bit sick and having almost like these fever dreams of sort about, an army slaughtering Native Americans, of which he's part of their tribe. He kind of wakes up, freaks out, grabs a bow and arrow, and is now fully on board with this whole revenge idea, and is talking with a Native American accent for a while. And on top of that, he's dressed like a Native American as well. The Jesse character giving them stuff to wear, so Grant looks kind of like a cowboy, Biscuit looks kind of like a Native American, but, So some may see that as being problematic, and I kind of wonder if that's one of the things that Roebuck meant when he reiterated, this was a long time ago, to keep that in mind. His sensibilities around storytelling is indeed a bit different now, and also in general, this is still a bit cheesy here and there, them dressed like that. It's almost like Halloween costumes in a way. As well as the cowboy hallucinations to go with the Native American visions and that fever dream. But that kind of pulls these punks into this Western feel, which kind of hangs over the entire film. We go from New York City punks to a road trip to strange encounters to a tragedy to a story of revenge and the slathering of Western on top. Now, from what I understand, the film didn't really get much of a release, or at least not a very successful one. I heard a bit about it on an episode of the Movie Crypt podcast. They had Lee Ving on there as a guest, and he spoke to it a bit. I think it was from sometime within the past year, but like many films of the time which didn't get that initial successful theatrical run, the VHS rentals through the 80s and even into the 90s really helped this film find its home, as well as a very frequent cable run. Now, I remember watching this one back in the day and enjoying it, but it kind of just faded away. One friend of mine insists that he never saw it, even though I know that we watched it together sometime around 1996. Even my own mother swears that she's never seen this one. But perhaps, though I do feel it's a decent film, for some it's ultimately a bit forgettable. But for me, there are aspects and lines which frequently come to mind, such as Flea saying something to the effect of, let's just have a beer and party, when he's trying to make peace with Lee Ving's character. The gas pumps in town being locked and Biscuit being creeped out because he's remembering a movie that he saw with a meteor or a comet and everybody turned to dust, which of course he was referring to Night of the Comet, which came out a few years earlier and starred his co-star in this, Catherine Mary Stewart. And even Grant kind of learning how to shoot a gun, like where that kick is going to be and how to hold it and kick back properly. Every time I see somebody hold a gun wrong in an older movie, like in The Masters of the Universe, even though it was a laser gun, just seeing her hold that gun that way. But lots of little bits of this kind of come to mind over the years, so it definitely stuck with me a bit. And sure, while it's not a perfect movie, it still works well. We got a slim runtime, very likable characters, a great soundtrack of music too, which really fits with these characters. Actors with a lot of chemistry, a bit of humor thrown into this Western-inspired road trip revenge film, which after all these years is still more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out my latest video here for Dudes from 1987, which at the time of this video is available on, well, it's pretty much everywhere now. We got Prime, Peacock, Roku, Tubi, Pluto, Night Flight Plex, Shout, and of course paid rental. But yeah, that's all I got for this quick one here. I hope you enjoyed this throwback to the 80s for a lesser talked about film. Aside from having videos with Catherine Mary Stewart on my channel, those being The Last Starfighter and Night of the Comet, I also have two other lesser known John Cryer ones, Morgan Stewart's Coming Home and Hiding Out. So if interested in more of those look backs on them, just do a search for Saturday Night and the title of the film or the actor as seen here, and it should come up so you can check those out. Anyways, thanks for coming by. That's all I've got for this one. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Remember that if you enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up, and if not already subscribed, consider subscribing, as basically I just like to share films I enjoy. No really deep dives, no trying to rate or rank, definitely not trashing anything, and I will see you in the next one.